We've been taught that the elephant is the king of the savanna, but in the game of survival, size is actually a massive biological liability. An elephant needs nearly 150 kilograms of food a day just to stay alive. Every hour spent eating is an hour spent vulnerable. Meanwhile, a single leafcutter ant colony, each member weighing less than a raindrop, can strip an entire tree bare in a night, using a coordination system so precise it makes human logistics look primitive. No brain bigger than a pinhead, no individual strength worth mentioning, and yet these colonies outcompete, outsurvive, and outexpand almost everything that outweighs them a millionfold. While massive mammals struggle to feed their book, a ruthless, neuro-efficient swarm of leafcutter ants is quietly destabilizing entire ecosystems. Intelligence doesn't need scale, it needs a hive mind. Let us start with the numbers, because the numbers don't lie. An adult elephant needs somewhere between 150 and 300 kilograms of vegetation a day just to keep its own body running, and every kilogram of that has to be found, chewed, and digested before the next feeding cycle begins. That's not strength, that's a leash. A leafcutter colony, by contrast, operates on a completely different metabolic logic. Instead of one enormous body burning enormous fuel, you have millions of tiny bodies, each one cheap to maintain, each one disposable. A single ant dying changes nothing. An elephant losing access to food for even a few days can mean starvation. Size, in other words, isn't armor, it's overhead. And that overhead becomes a death sentence when the environment shifts. A large mammal is a slow-moving target for a fast-moving planet. Droughts, habitat loss, shifting migration corridors all hit giants first because giants need more of everything and can least afford disruption. An insect colony, meanwhile, can relocate, rebuild, and recover in a fraction of the time. If a flood wipes out 10,000 ants, the colony barely notices. If a drought threatens one elephant's water source, that's an existential crisis. Nature has built the mammal for stability and the swarm for chaos, and chaos, increasingly, is the world we live in. But raw numbers only explain part of the story. The real advantage isn't in the ants themselves, it's in how they think, or more precisely, how they don't need to. No single ant is intelligent, no single ant needs to be. Instead, the colony runs on something closer to a biological internet. Pheromone trails laid down and reinforced by thousands of individuals simultaneously, creating a decision-making system that reacts faster than any brain built around fear, hesitation, or self-preservation. An elephant herd has to process danger through a handful of experienced matriarchs. A colony processes danger through millions of parallel data points, all feeding into the same distributed response. No meetings, no chain of command, no single point of failure. That's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. You cannot decapitate a swarm the way you can cripple a herd. Kill a queen, and foraging continues. Destroy a nest entrance, and workers reroute within minutes. There is no general to assassinate, no alpha to dethrone, just an endlessly self-repairing network that treats the death of any individual as background noise. It's not that the colony doesn't feel loss, it's that loss was never a variable it needed to manage in the first place.
And when chemistry enters the equation, the size gap stops being a disadvantage and starts being a liability with teeth. Insects have spent tens of millions of years refining biochemical weapons that don't care how big you are. Fire ants deliver a venom that triggers a burning, blistering immune response completely disproportionate to their size. Potent enough that livestock producers in fire ant territory have to actively manage nest density around calving areas, because newborn animals can be overwhelmed by sheer numbers before they're even strong enough to stand and flee. Other species use formic acid as both weapon and signal, spraying it to disable rivals many times their size, while simultaneously alerting the rest of the colony to converge. This isn't brute force, it's targeted biochemistry, engineered by evolution to bypass the very defenses that make megafauna feel invincible. Then there's the part almost nobody thinks about. Leafcutter ants aren't just destroyers, they're farmers, and not in some loose metaphorical sense. Deep beneath the forest floor, leafcutter colonies cultivate vast fungal gardens, feeding them shredded leaf matter harvested with mechanical precision, then living off the fungus that grows in return. It's agriculture, evolved independently of humans, running on a scale and sophistication that rivals early human farming systems. And the physical consequence of that agriculture is staggering. Colonies excavate chambers and tunnels that can honeycomb the earth beneath the forest, redirecting root systems, altering soil composition, and in some cases determining which plant species can even survive in a given patch of ground. The insects aren't just living in the ecosystem, they're rewriting its foundation from below. Which brings us to the uncomfortable pattern sitting underneath all of this. As human-altered landscapes spread, cities, farmland, disturbed soil, warming microclimates, it isn't the elephants, the big cats, or the great herds that are thriving in the gaps. It's the insects. Ants, in particular, flourish in exactly the fragmented, heat-retaining, resource-scarce environments that large mammals struggle to survive in. Every parking lot, every urban heat island, every disrupted forest edge is, from an ant colony's perspective, just more territory to claim. Mammals need us to leave room for them. Insects don't ask for room. They simply take what's left over and thrive in it. So, the giants may still dominate our imagination, the elephant on the savannah, the lion at the top of every food chain chart we were handed in school. But imagination isn't survival math. While the large mammals fight to hold on to shrinking, fragile advantages, the micro-architects have already spent millions of years optimizing for exactly the kind of unstable, resource-scarce world we're building. The throne was never really about size. It was about who could adapt the fastest, fail the cheapest, and rebuild without ever needing to mourn what was lost. The next time you picture the king of the jungle, maybe it's time to picture something smaller, something that doesn't need a crown, because it never needed a hierarchy in the first place. The giants gave us spectacle. The swarm gave us a blueprint for survival that's outlasted almost everything bigger than it. If this changed how you think about power in the wild, tell us in the comments. Which animal do you think we're most wrong about? And if you want to see who else has been quietly winning the survival game while we weren't looking,
Subscribe, because the real rulers of this planet were never the ones we expected.